Welcome back to the show. Now we're getting into our Oppenheimer review. And to start the overview, Oppenheimer is a 2023 biographical drama film written and directed by Christopher Nolan. The film chronicles the life of American theoretical physicist and polymath J. Robert Oppenheimer. It stars Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer and Robert Downey Jr. as Strauss, with the remaining ensemble supporting cast including Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, Rami Malek, and Kenneth Branagh. Had a budget of $100 million and brought in $405.6 million to the box office. It also had a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. To start off with it, I mean, this has obviously been, talk of the summer, along along with Barbie, with those two movies going head to head. But what were your initial thoughts on this being just, another engrossing achievement from Christopher Nolan, stunning visuals, and Cillian Murphy to me really having like the defining role of his career.
Yeah. No, this is definitely, I feel like, one of Cillian Murphy's biggest movies or biggest roles yet today.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't know it was 93. I thought it was 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. Did it go down
really?
a little bit?
I think it did. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When it first
Sometimes
came out,
I know the audience score brings it down. They're like, oh, 3 hours, nah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought when it came out it was 96, and then it must, and Barbie was 93, and then they probably went down. But yeah, nah, dude. So initial thoughts, just like I will say, from Christopher Nolan, like this was not a very Christopher Nolan film, if that makes sense. Like it still felt like Christopher Nolan was directing it, you could tell, but this is so like different than all his other movies. You know what I'm saying? So when watching it through, it just felt so different, but it was still super good at the same time. It's so different than anything he's done, and you can tell he has this like touch on it. But yeah, this movie was just like it had me like engaged the entire time, and I think that's like the power of like Christopher Nolan movies is he has you engaged the entire time. He has you strapped in. The soundtrack is going to be amazing as always. You know what I'm saying? I don't think Hans Zimmer was on this soundtrack, but like
that was a first. That was a first because he's usually always I expect Hans Zimmer to hear Hans Zimmer on a Christopher Nolan film.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean the soundtrack was still good regardless, and yeah, I was just strapped in the whole time, engaged with the message in the film, and I think the interesting thing to me was one thing I wanted more from the movie was kind of like diving into the effects of like the actual effect of like creating a nuclear weapon and having to deal with the aftermath of that.
The specifics.
I feel like it was more political than the physical or the psychologically aspect of it, and he had like little blips of like psychological like trauma that he showed and like that kind of effect, and I thought that was really cool. And I thought that they were gonna really dive into that more than like the political aspect of it. But I will say the political aspect of it was done really well, and that story kind of kept me engaged like this in the entire time. So beautiful movie. I just wish the psychological aspect of it was explored a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a really good point because the first 2 hours are like super intense. It's full throttle. They're going for it. And the last hour turns more into like a courtroom drama after like the high of the 2 hours. Like, do you feel as though with a movie like that, there has to be, because some people said that after the first 2 hours, the movie could have ended and you got it right there. Like, it really could have just been a 2 hour film. But do you think that last hour with the courtroom drama effect was the reason Nolan felt he had to like maybe expand the time and the length of the film?
Yeah, I think it was necessary in my opinion. Like, yeah, they could have ended the movie, but then
it would have been empty.
Yeah, it would have been like, dang, that's it. I feel like the story of it is more so, like I said, like I was expecting the kind of psychological, thing to be brought out, but what really was brought out, what made it interesting was that kind of political battle going on. And man, like Robert Downey Jr. just like absolutely killed the role. Like he
said that was the best.
He
said that was the best movie experience he's ever been a part of.
Yeah, like dude, like I mean, it took me a while to even know that was Robert Downey Jr. At first, I was like, oh, whoa, that's him, Because yeah, we're so used to him playing like hero roles or like the main person, but yeah, for him to like take a step back and play like almost a villainous character was very interesting. But yeah, I think it's a beautiful movie overall. I do think that kind of last leg of an hour was necessary, and I think it like wrapped up the movie like really well.
Yeah, for sure. And now getting to our first topic from 1 to 4 stars, what would you give it? I would go with 4 because I feel as though this is a complete spectacle, and the film in totality is so dense but ambitious and complex at the same time. Like this is one of those 3-hour films. I went to go see it twice. I didn't lose interest even the second time I saw it because I'm like, yeah, this is a long film, but you've really got to have all the right meters and storyline factors to like string it together. And they he put it perfectly. I know I put it perfectly together. Like, what would be your particular rating from 1 to 4 stars?
Yeah, dude. I think I'm gonna give it a 4 as well. Just because, like, like I said, I was captivated from the beginning. There wasn't a single moment where I was like, despite the time, how long the movie was, I still felt captivated the entire time,
Yeah,
and was just so eager to see like where the film went next. Um, and just like the cinematography was good, the music was good. Like I was just really like enthralled the whole time. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 as well.
definitely. And do you think like we always for Christopher Nolan films that we've done in the past on this show, we've always talked about why the cast is so important. Like, what do you think makes Nolan just a master at knowing what cast to put together? Because this was a one of those films like you're like, man, you see everybody throughout this. I mean, like
Yeah,
Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, he brings back Matt Damon. Like
yeah.
he is always bringing the heavy hitters. Like, what do you think gives him that ability to just always spot? Okay, this guy needs to be here. This lady needs to be in this spot.
I think he just really knows kind of like the effect that the actors and actresses have on a movie, like what they bring to the table in terms of like their unique ability to act and like to bring the character out, certain characters out.
Yeah,
Like he knew like Matt Damon being like the kind of police officer, like he's played those kind of roles in the past, right? The kind of appeal that Florence Pugh has, and like obviously what's her name? Emily Blunt,
Emily Blunt. Yes, amazing.
yeah, yeah. They kind of Christopher Nolan knows the kind of appeal they have to kind of bring like that out of like a female character, and so like I think he's a mastermind at knowing like kind of like what those what they bring to the table in that sense, and then he's able to kind of like cultivate an experience based on that. It's kind of similar to just like how you're curating like a music experience. You're bringing certain
Yeah,
artists on to kind of
very
curate your
similar.
sound. It's very similar with like directing and bringing the right cast to a movie.
Definitely. And now getting to our next topic with favorite character, I would go with Leslie as he always wanted to go with the best and knew that Oppenheimer was the man for the job. Even during the security hearing, he was one of the few people that defended Oppenheimer's character. I mean, obviously we can mention Oppenheimer as one of those characters, but I think when you look at the supporting cast, like Leslie, he brought a different energy into that film. Like him and Oppenheimer, they went they went toe to toe, head to head, like many times disagreeing, but at the end of the day, like they both saw each other's vision and knew
Yeah,
why each other had the objective and just stance that they took. Like to you overall, who was your favorite character?
I would say Strauss, just because, and I think Strauss was Robert Downey Jr.'s
Robert Downey
character,
Jr.
right?
Yeah,
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 okay. Yeah, I would say Strauss just because he felt like the mastermind behind like all the political like stunnery going on, and just kind of like he was like the main driving force, also to kind of encourage Oppenheimer to kind of really like have his idea and like be the one that was in, be the one to make the like that whole point of the movie too was kind of like there's this kind of ego battle going on between them two
oh
to
yeah,
kind of be the one to originate the idea. And so like without Strauss, who knows if Oppenheimer would have kind of like been driven to even create the bomb in the first place. So there's a lot of like push and pull going on with Strauss and Oppenheimer. And so I really kind of like that he was able to bring that out of Oppenheimer, as like the character in the show.
oh yeah, for sure. And now getting to our next topic, most memorable scenes. I had Oppenheimer studying physics at Cambridge. Also, Oppenheimer meeting Heisenberg. The Manhattan Project beginning. Trinity test. Obviously, one of the biggest scenes where the nuclear weapon test occurred. Oppenheimer meeting with President Truman. Strauss recruiting Oppenheimer to Princeton. Truman approving the hydrogen bomb development. Oppenheimer security clearance hearing. Strauss's Senate hearing. Oppenheimer receiving the award from President Lyndon Johnson. That is probably the most memorable scenes I've ever
Oh yeah.
included in a review because there were just so many
Yeah.
so many good ones. But to you, the Trinity test, obviously that one stands out so much because
Yeah.
that's the moment you know what's going to happen. But you even I was tense in the movie when it was
Yeah.
about that, like when they were about to like test it and do the
Yeah.
countdown. It just was one of those really tense moments. Like to you, what were some of the memorable scenes, or maybe like one standout?
Yeah, definitely. I would say mainly that scene, the test scene.
Yeah.
Also, like you said, the scene with the president. And also I think you might have probably said this as well, but kind of like the interrogation room, that whole
Oh
like
yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah.
I think that's probably like my favorite aspect of the film is just like them constantly bringing it back to that. I think also him being with Einstein throughout the movie, like those scenes where he was interacting with
Pivotal
Einstein.
conversations.
Yeah, like those conversations were really important. So yeah, I would say those kind of scenes are the ones that got me. I mean,
Definitely.
obviously they have like that. I feel like there was some unnecessary like scenes with like Florence Pugh. Like she was in the movie like 5 minutes, bro, and every time she was like naked and just like,
What did you
I'm
think?
like,
Like that was. I'm gonna be honest. Like I've never seen Nolan put those types of scenes in a movie. It almost
I
felt
was,
as though like Nolan that maybe was the reason why it was rated R because
yeah,
people were
bro,
saying like, "Yo, we had this had to be censored a certain way. We've never
yeah.
seen Nolan like how much did that surprise you? Because we've never seen Nolan go that route.
Yeah, it just I feel like it doesn't add much to the movie in terms of like the only
We know he
thing.
was a number. We know he was a
Yeah,
womanizer. Like it didn't.
yeah, like that, and I guess that was what they were trying to paint the picture of was that he was a womanizer and he had that dog in him. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what, bro. Like
For all the
I don't know. It
dogs.
just kind of made it more real that like he was really that. I think one of the like the favorite parts of it was that like, bro, everybody was telling this man like, yo, you are that guy. You're the only one that can figure. Like, imagine being told that,
That
and
gets to
then
your
like,
head. That gets to your
yeah,
head.
dude, it has to get to your head. Then you start like, getting all these women and all this stuff. So I think it was necessary for that aspect of the movie, I guess, in terms of like painting
He
the
really thought he
picture
was
of
him.
him being
He
like
really
that.
thought he was
Yeah,
him,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
was.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, literally. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing, like it's interesting because the opening scenes I talk about this all the time. The opening scenes of Nolan films are always like just spectacles. They're very important. Like, what did you think about this opening scene? Like, do you think it measured up to like some of the past ones he's had? Because he's obviously had better opening scenes, like Dark Knight, Inception. There's so many the Prestige. There's so many movies you can count to. Like, but what did you think about how the movie opened and just how he got things running?
honestly, I think he did a good job of getting people engaged, and
Yeah,
just like the science behind like the explosion and stuff, and just kind of like getting people just like reeled in right away. Like, yeah, it wasn't as captivating like character wise and like action wise, but like more so just like the premise of the movie wise and like kind of exploring that. And that's why I really thought that after the opening scene, I really thought that they were gonna, because like there were several parts in the movie where there was like these blips of like going back to kind of like the explosion and the like the chemistry behind the explosion. So I thought that they were really gonna tie that into like the psychological aspect of the film and kind of like his struggle and like hearing that and watching all these people die on the news and hearing about it. One of my friends made a really good point about it was actually that Christopher Nolan did that on purpose because when Oppenheimer made the bomb and he was awaiting the news for whether how many people it killed, blah blah blah. We know just as much as him. He didn't know like
that's
everything
true.
that was going on. And so it was like a creative decision for Christopher Nolan to not kind of show the effects of the bomb and like what it actually, like how much damage it actually did, because we know just as much as Oppenheimer, and the movie's not about like the actual explosion and the aftermath. It's more about the build up to that
Yeah,
part and
it's
the
all about the build up.
political.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but yeah, I think it did a good job of just getting people reeled in.
Mhm. Absolutely. And now getting to most memorable quotes, I had Now I Am Become Death, Destroyer of Worlds from Oppenheimer. Also, Power Stays in the Shadows from Strauss. They won't fear it until they understand it from Oppenheimer. Why Won't You Fight from Kitty. We're Not Convicting, Just Denying from Strauss. And then also, You Don't Get to Commit Sin, and then Ask All of Us to Feel Sorry for You and Their Consequences from Kitty. And then finally, I Believe We Did from Oppenheimer. To you, what were some of the memorable quotes that you kind of felt were standouts in this one?
Yeah, dude, I think the most memorable one is, I mean, obviously you have the Now I've Become Dead. That's a show world.
Yeah.
So that whole scene was like crazy. It got a lot of controversy too, because I think they're reading it from the Quran or something. I think.
Oh
I'm not
yeah,
sure.
that's true. Yeah.
I'm not trying to get canceled, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I think like
I think it was from the Bible.
Jesus said what? Nah. But yeah, the other one I think that really stuck out to me was You Don't Get to Commit Sin and then ask all of us to feel sorry for you when there are consequences. Heavy. I think that one was like, whoa. Like, yeah, you're that guy and you have to do this, but you can't, like, we're not going to feel sorry for you because, like, this is like the sacrifice you're making for being like that guy, you know what I'm saying? So I think that was probably the number one that stuck out to me the most.
Definitely. And now getting to kind of like what did you like the most about the storyline? To me, just how it focused on obsessive individuals pursuing an idea until it destroys them. I thought was really fascinating because almost everybody in this movie was chasing something. They were pursuing a particular objective, and it nearly ruined some people. And obviously, with what happened with Oppenheimer at the end, being stripped of certain security clearances, and Strauss being deducted in a power rank that was obviously the result. But to you, what particular element of the storyline you kind of like the most?
I think it just kind of goes back to the whole alternative story going on in the background, which is kind of like the political drama of everything. That really captivated me, especially in the end when it like really is brought out. Because at first you're kind of brought in, and when you're first introduced to kind of this whole like court hearing, you don't really understand what exactly is happening, until like it just starts like getting deeper and deeper into the story, and like all the drama is happening. Um, and I think that's probably like the most important thing about the story that I like. But I think, once again, just kind of wishing that there was more emphasis on like the actual effects of the bomb and how it affected Oppenheimer like psychologically. I think that would have been really important, especially because you also had like the scene where um the other girl who Florence Pugh plays, I forgot the name of her character, but where she like kills herself, or was she killed, or did she kill herself? I forgot.
I think she killed herself.
Yeah. So like like that obviously will have a psychological effect. It was something that you were seeing like while you were married to Kitty, and then you're also like dealing with all the pressure to kind of build this bomb as well. So I wish I would have seen more of that kind of explored, but otherwise, like I think a solid storyline altogether.
Definitely. And before we move on, I mean, we have to mention the phenomenon of two movies, like major movies drop on the same day with Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like, obviously, you saw it. I still haven't seen it. Like, in terms of the spectacle of two films like that, completely contrasting, it's got everybody's attention. Obviously, the Barbenheimer marketing and different things like that, and just like which one are you going to see? Are you going to see both? Or are you going to do like a double feature type thing? Like, what have you thought about the phenomenon and just what it's done for both movies? Because obviously they're completely in two different fields.
Yeah.
But it's brought a lot of different energy.
Bro, it's actually crazy. You kind of think about how they both kind of attached onto each other. Obviously Oppenheimer or Barbie, more people saw it because I think it has a wider range of audience of people that want to see it. Also, it's not a 3-hour movie, so like more people will be willing to see it. But I think the whole marketing campaign is insane. Like especially for Barbie, they had like I was literally at like this bar and they have like Barbie themed drinks and stuff like that. It's like, bro, like who's paying you to make these drinks? You know what I'm saying? Like what like are they getting advertisement from this? Like, dude, I'm telling you, it's crazy, dude. But yeah, I think they both kind of attached on to each other and like it became this really cool phenomenon. And it was kind of just exciting to see a double feature. I haven't done that in so long. And it makes you more excited to kind of see the two, even though you know they're not comparable at all in terms of like what they're about and stuff. It kind of just gets you excited for both and puts you in the right mood to kind of separately but equally absorb both, if that makes sense.
So wait, did you see Oppenheimer first and then Barbie? Did you do Barbie then Oppenheimer?
We saw Oppenheimer first, then Barbie, because
Man,
we're
that's
like,
like getting out of like a 12-round fight. You're like, oh man, I gotta record.
literally, that's why we were like, all right, we gotta. Barbie has to be on the up end of that because Barbie, there was like super low expectations for Barbie. You know, like it's
Yeah.
like what could this possibly be about that I have to like pay attention to as much as like if we saw Oppenheimer second, it would be like you're gonna be locked in for 3 hours. It's already late. You already saw a movie, and you're not gonna pay as close attention. So Barbie was definitely had to be number
Be
two
like,
for me.
oh, is this hour two? Is this like three?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm just thinking about Barbie still. You know, like yeah, you know.
Now getting into our last topic, 10 years from now, like, do you still think we'll be watchable and intriguing? Obviously, this is a very early to talk about it, but I definitely think it will. I mean, it's a spectacle in every sense of the word. It's rare for us to get 3-hour movies that can keep your attention from start to finish. And this casting, I know we've said it countless times, but this casting is some of the best we've seen in a while. Just A level throughout. Like, how do you think this movie will age another decade from now? I know it's early, but what are your initial thoughts with that?
Nah, yeah, I definitely think it's aging. It's gonna age well. I actually haven't seen it the second time. I really want to, but yeah, dude, I think like you said, it's so captivating and it keeps you drawn in that like in 10 years, like someone could rewatch this and be equally as like captivated as they did the first time when they like, you know, what's gonna happen next. You know, obviously it's a long movie, so they're not gonna remember every single scene. You know what I'm saying? They'll just remember the kind of like the build up to the end. You know,
Yeah.
and just to be able to re-experience that in 10 years, I think will be awesome. You know, so I think it definitely has replay value. It definitely has like show my kids energy, you know. So it's definitely like kind of a exciting phenomenon.
Yeah, for sure. And before we close out, I mean, this is also sparked. Nolan's catalog is so deep, man. Like, it's just he's got such a deep catalog at this point, and with what he's done, and people have gone through like, man, what are your top 3 favorite Christopher Nolan movies? I've always kind of had a similar ranking, but The Dark Knight, Inception, and The Prestige are like 3 of my like go tos. Interstellar is still a long movie but phenomenal.
Yeah.
Memento as well. Like so many you can just mention and go back to. But to you, are there like any 3 particular ones that you say like, man, these are the main ones I'd go back to?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Inception up there, number 1 movie. Like, you know, I think I put Dark Knight up there as well. That's like it's the whole trilogy is insane. Like, so I would say Inception, Dark
one of the
Knight.
best superhero trilogies.
Yes, dude. Literally, I think I still put. I would say I put Interstellar over Memento.
Okay.
Just because
a lot of people like Interstellar. A lot of people like Interstellar.
Yeah, that's literally why. Like, I to me, like Interstellar was a really good movie. I never really put it in my top movies of all time, but I can't deny the effect that it had, like the soundtrack, the impact, and like how well received it was from everyone.
Matthew McConaughey, Jeff Ryan.
Exactly. Exactly, dude. So, you know, like it's definitely like a cultural phenomenon. And so it's just like the amount of like just clout that Christopher Nolan has in his movies is just like insane, you know, like you know. So I'm just excited for the next one, you know, like it's
how do you
he's
think
one of them directors, you know.
Yeah, it's always the next. Like, he's one of those where like can't wait to see what he does next. Like how do you think he's gonna carry on another? Because we always mention like, you know, even we can translate with artists. Like, how do you go on another decade run? Like, how can you keep it going? Like how do you think he's gonna diversify? Because he has different. He has the action. He has the historical. He has the psychological, the thriller. Like, he has different categories. Like, how do you think he's going to diversify his set going forward?
Hey man, maybe we'll get a romance movie from him. I don't know.
Rom-com.
That would be
that would be interesting.
Oh man, just explosions from like love or something. I don't know, bro. He'll find some way to get explosions in there. But dude, yeah, I mean, It's crazy. I think he's just a very unique storyteller. I think that's like his key, right?
Yes.
Every movie he
Number one.
has, there's like this unique element, and that's why I said I feel like Oppenheimer is so different because since it is like a historical, documentation of the events, or like the representation of a historical documentation. It's not all 100% accurate, but like since it was more of this documentary style, it was harder to kind of bring a unique story to that element. But he still told this story in a unique way that like no other documentary has like told the story, or not this specific story, but just stories in general about history. But yeah, I think he's just a really good storyteller, and he always finds unique ways to tell like stories that haven't been told, basically.
Definitely, man. Well, and I obviously, like you said, can't wait to see what he does next. It might be around explosions from love. That would be a fire. That would be interesting time.
Oh man, dude, it'd be like a crazy rom com, bro. Crazy rom com comedy right there.
Ryan Reynolds or something. Well, Maurice, it
Like
has
the
been
Drake meme,
the
the combination. Like
combination.
yeah, that whole meme's
Is it
going
going to be
crazy
rom
right now.
com or psychological?
Yeah, combination.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, Maurice, it's been an absolute pleasure as always, man. And thank you so much for being on. Who knows? You might be back in a couple of weeks if another big name artist drops another album.
that for the dogs, man.
The
For
dogs. The
the dogs.
dogs. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. I'm your host, Wendell Burns. This has been Full Scope. See you later.